go. You ready? Silence.
Welcome back to Exit 181, a podcast where I, Matt Duncan,
and I, Dean Bianchi,
discuss music and the history of our friendship over the last 20 plus years as we almost 30 years as we oh god, and I'm not drinking tonight, maybe I need a shot, but the 30 plus years of our friendship as we have shared interest and appreciation for music and other forms of popular culture. So we're changing things up yet again, and our distribution is going to adjust a little bit as we have decided to make the shift back to an audio podcast that shows up in various places but is easier to distribute. We won't be incorporating music in real time in most cases the way that we were on the 5 YouTube episodes that we did, but hopefully we'll be more productive and more frequent, and we'll be able to make it regular. That's an old guy thing.
I know it has to do sounds
with Metamucil.
we're getting old, so we got to be more regular.
We got to be regular. So I think that's a good place to start a conversation. So we both kind of came to this in different ways, but Dean, if you want to speak to what prompted your decision to go this direction back to audio.
I mean, so we were talking last week, and we've tried to do these video podcasts and keep them kind of regular, and it just some of it is just the time suck of producing a video podcast, and I think anyone who is actually listening at this point is probably more interested in you and I just sort of rambling and chatting versus, all the uber details of the little clips and snippets and whatever that we were trying to throw in. And I think you and I both agreed, basically, let's just have a conversation every week about music. It's always fluid. It's always growing. I mean, I'm, since we last talked, I've got completely addicted to another band in the meantime. Right. Stuff is always changing. So why not just have a conversation every week and see how that goes? And I think you had brought up in the conversation, and it's a valid point, watching a YouTube video versus just being able to access a podcast is a very different thing. And so I think we both want to occasionally do some kind of video based thing that kind of really deep dives into something. But in terms of just hey, let's have a music conversation once a week, which we clearly, we can talk for an hour about music no matter what.
Right.
So let's just, let's just do that.
Absolutely. Well, and so I haven't looked at our original 2 sort of our musical pedigree kind of things. I don't remember the exact dates on those, but here we go. February 15th and March 1st. So as we come up on 10 months, we have those 2 episodes and 5 video episodes. And, that's what we wanted, was something more frequent and more, I don't know. We were all over the place when we were trying to put it together, because we were thinking how, sort of tailored do we want it to be? Do we want this to be like a show as opposed to a conversation, and I think the conversation felt good, you know, like my son will still ask sometimes for me to turn on those Spotify conversations because the range of music is all over the place and we can, you know, intersplice the music as needed, but also we just talked and went wherever things took us.
Yeah.
And that was a nice feeling. And there are times when we'll be like in our downtime having a conversation that I'm like, shit, we should have recorded that. Because
no, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I think we just became explicit. You might want to like clip that. You might have to put the E on this.
We'll throw the E on there.
Damn you, Tipper Gore.
No, but I mean, 100%. Like I mean, you know, so behind the scenes, like, you know, so I was doing a lot of the video editing kind of part of
a lot means all
video. Well, but,
yeah.
And I enjoy that, but you know, we both have lives and
right.
You know, suddenly 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks go by, 5 weeks go by. And it's like, you know, it's a lot to kind of put that together. And I think what we're trying to do, you know, when we pitched this whole idea to each other, you know, and then we sat down and we each kind of spat out like, here's, you know, 50 different topics. And we literally have 50 different topics from each of us. And it's like, let's just talk about that stuff. Yeah. You know, like, and I think every video episode we've gone off track and gone down these wormholes. And that's actually what this ends up being about, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's, and there's so much that goes into just getting all of the stuff to sync up accurately, audio, video, to get clean audio and then sync it all back up, and just the prep to be ready to go. Suddenly we're an hour into the time we wish we could have been having a conversation. We're getting tired. Then we have some conversation downtime that we didn't record. And it's like, there's so much buildup to the moment of doing something on video that doesn't have to exist for audio. Like tonight, you know, we had our minor issues in getting the audio straight, but it was nothing compared to getting the audio straight with the video.
Right.
And so we're already recording with a minimal amount of adjustment to the process, and we're ready to go. And that has a lot of value. Like at this point, I feel like if you decided on, you know, Thursday morning, hey, Matt, let's record again. I got an idea. And we just popped in and talked for an hour and popped back off. We could do that now. And with the video component, that was just not going to happen. Yeah. So, you know, I'm eager to see where we can go with this because of the way it could make us more productive. But I also don't think that, you know, it will necessarily need to abandon the video format. It's just going to be, you know, different from now on.
Yep.
And that's fine. That's okay. Well, you've got stuff in mind, so why don't you take us down the...
I don't, but we actually did not actually have any conversation about
and that's okay. But
tonight, so
yeah, but I can think of, you know, half a dozen directions we could go. So
no, I mean, the only thing I referenced was I feel like every 6 months to a year, I stumble onto something and I get just sucked in, like crazy sucked in for a week or so. And then either that dies out or it becomes like a thing where I'm like, I'm all dialed in on this band. So, you know, the last video prior to the one that's coming out shortly, you know, was the Sumo Psycho thing. Like that was a band I kind of stumbled onto and I just went full on. as many YouTube videos as I could find, as much information as I could find, and listening to it over and over and over and over. And so that literally happened like 6 days ago. And I know I had heard 1 or 2 songs by this band, Kim Dracula. And then for some reason, a couple of days ago, I jumped into it, listened to a song, and then I was like, I think the video was linked somewhere. I don't even remember exactly what, but like I completely dived into this album, and I think it came out summer of this year. So it's pretty recent, but I shared it with you. I shared it with some other friends. I kind of shared it socially, and I'm like, I have 100% literally listened to this album like 25 times in the last 4 days. So I don't know if that's something we want to chat about, but
well, so Kim Dracula is interesting to me, partially because a good friend of mine from high school, DC, has been interested in Kim Dracula, I don't know, for maybe the last year or so, in my understanding, and was posting a ton of stuff, just screenshots and pictures and references to Kim Dracula in my Facebook feed for a while. So I looked into the music probably in like June or something.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting sort of mix. And then there's also the fact that Kim Dracula is the person. It's kind of like Marilyn Manson was the band and the singer in the band. Right. It's got that kind of vibe. And then there's the fact that Kim Dracula was also in a band before doing anything as Kim Dracula, and trying to remember the name of that band.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, from what I saw, like, I think
Jester Pose.
Okay.
Jester Pose is the
band,
and I don't know.
So I know they're from Australia.
Yeah, Tasmania.
And I know that they did a cover of Paparazzi.
Yeah,
from Lady Gaga. That was like how they got like kind of TikTok famous, I guess.
Right.
Which led to sort of some more stuff. So the thing that sucked me in, and I actually referenced this to a couple other friends earlier yesterday. I have this vivid memory of the very first time I heard Mr. Bungle. And it was college radio, and I heard Squeeze Me Macaroni. And
yeah.
Which is, a chaotic, all over the place song. And then I was like, I got to find out who this band is. And then I found out who the band is. And then I heard that first album, and I was like, oh my God, this is like 9,000 music genres all meshed together. This is absolutely one of my favorite things. And that's been one of my favorite albums for 30 years. And then this album by Kim Dracula, which I always forget the title exactly. Let me just make sure I got it right.
Oh, the title of the album?
Yeah, A Gradual Decline.
Gradual Decline.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
album is the 30 years later feeling for me of that Mr. Bungle album. It's the perfect mesh of all these genres, all this changes, all this mix up, all this stuff. It's got a healthy mix of music that has come out in the last 30 years. So it's got a little bit of Korn, it's got a little bit of, White Zombie, it's got a little, but it's got a, there's big band in there. There's all kinds of there's little jazz hooks and all kinds of stuff. But this is the first album that had that same feeling for me from 30 years ago of that first Mr. Bungle album. And so that's been the hook for the last, 4 or 5 days where I'm literally in the midst of just like soaking in this album and just kind of playing it on repeat. And I even texted you earlier, like I was literally like, there's a bunch of YouTube reaction videos of people watching this and stuff. And I think that is, it's got a lot of metal. It's got a lot of, sensitive topics and controversy, and the videos are a little harsh and, in your face kind of stuff. There's some violence and some other stuff, but it's just kind of fascinating to me. The pool of if you just break it down to just the music, it's just like, there's all this stuff going on, and they just have some capacity to pull off merging all these things so that, every 20 seconds you're shifting genres, and it's not jarring or false or weird. It just works.
Yeah. The official video for Make Me Famous even has two caveats, two little disclaimers at the beginning, like not trying to glorify violence or anything, and an explanation that it's been altered from its original format because of things that have happened in the United States in recent years. I think there's a lot of interesting things about this artist, because partially at times there's almost like channeling or riffing off of things like Cradle of Filth, as far as like the imagery and that kind of thing. But then like there's a collaboration with Jonathan Davis from Korn. And so this is someone who's like jumped right into it, like suddenly, bam, like first album and some real credibility. Okay, so here's something. This is a bit of an aside, but I think it's a good little rabbit hole to run down for a minute. There seems to be a weird resurgence of nu metal. There seems to be a bunch of nu metal bands. It's been 15 years for a lot of these guys. Some of them, it's been 20 or more, 25. Like Korn, it's been 30, pretty close since their debut. Not quite there, but almost. I think 94 or 95 is when that album came out. So there's been this interesting resurgence, not only of like those bands touring again, not only of those bands recording and putting stuff out again, but also of interest in that musical genre. And I think new bands showing influence from nu metal, which is really weird, I think. I don't know why I think it's so weird.
No, I agree. I think so, like going back to kind of the Kim Dracula part of it. So like the genres that they're mixing in that I'm not familiar with, like as I was digging around, kind of looking like what other bands sound like Kim Dracula or use these references, like there's a lot of hip hop stuff that I'm not familiar with at all, but that is pulled in there. And there's definitely, so for as much as you get sort of that Cradle of Filth, or you get these little death metal moments and that kind of stuff, you get like, I think Ghostmane is one of the references.
Oh yeah, I'd never heard of Ghostmane until Saturday, and then suddenly I was like, "Oh, what the hell?" Yeah,
but so like that's what kind of also drew me in, because so 1991 or whatever, that first Mr. Bungle album, everything that they were pulling from was something I was at least loosely familiar with. Maybe not as much of the jazz stuff, but they're pulling like,
I had heard of John Zorn, even if I never listened to him.
Right.
Right.
And so for Kim Dracula, it's pulling a lot of stuff that I know, but then it's definitely pulling a few things that I don't know, but I can pick up on it enough. And so it's like a fascinating, like 30 years later, like I said, it's still pulling, there's horns in there. There's weird little big band 2-second riffs and stuff like that. But then there's, yeah, there's like these extreme new kind of hip hop angles, or kind of there's there's this other stuff in there mixed in with, it's clearly got a sort of metal or death metal bass, but it's not, all these songs are not metal songs or death metal songs or hair metal songs, or they're
right.
I don't know, but it's
one of them.
It's a cool way to for me, it's I found it interesting, like some of that hip hop and some of those other things, like as a full song of just that is not my vibe.
Right.
But the way it's like kind of meshed with everything in here totally works, like for me.
So I totally get where you're coming from, and I'll see you and I'll raise you one. So one of the things for me in the last, say, 5 to 6 years of my music listening that I've been surprised by is that I got kind of into the K-pop group Blackpink, and I was not like paying attention to K-pop much at all, except like right when I left Japan. I left Japan in 2011, and for about the year and a half before that, K-pop was starting to push into Japan, where they would just take, their greatest hits and re-record it all in Japanese and then re-release it in Japan, and then do all the like talk show tours. Yeah. And so, this is a long time ago, and it's a bunch of groups that, have gone on to other things or retired or are now like on all those kind of talk shows because they're not recording music anymore in a lot of ways. And then this group 21 like hit big, and then that Psy Gangnam Style song went ballistic through everything. And then K-pop kind of came into its own. And then you had, all of the just total domination of K-pop throughout any kind of media. But with Blackpink, I just stumbled on them one day and I was like, I need to give this, some kind of chance. I'll just check it out. I didn't like anything. Caught their first couple of videos and I was like, what's going on here? So the guy who is their producer is a Korean guy who moved to the US during his childhood, and he just goes by Teddy. He's their producer, and he's part of YG Entertainment. And the most interesting thing I think about all of their songs, because he's the primary songwriter, producer for everything, they all feel like mashups. All the songs that they have don't feel like a traditional, here's a song that has all of the normal pieces and it has a single genre cohesion. There's usually some kind of hyped intro, then there's a first rap part, and then there's like a singing breakdown, and then there's another rap part, and then there's a chorus, and then there's like all of these pieces seem to be almost assembled. And one of the other things that this guy has done is hire people who were on like America's Got Talent and The Voice and any of those kind of shows to be songwriters with him. So he'll hire them to bring pieces into that. And then he acts more like a DJ / producer, where he's assembling the pieces of a song. And so a lot of their tunes feel more like a mashup or a mixed DJ set or something, but 3.5 minutes long or something. And I get the sense that that's a lot of sort of where the current trajectory of music is kind of heading, in that people have learned, like, it's almost like a feedback loop from DJ culture and the notion of like what a mixtape is now, and what mashups were doing there in the late aughts. It seems like that's becoming songwriting. but intentionally so from the beginning. And so do you see some of that in what Kim Dracula is doing?
Yeah, because I think where you're going, like there's definitely not, if you kind of spanned popular music 60s to the aughts, even, verse, chorus, bridge, outro, like there's
Key change
always been, there's always been sort of a traditional song trajectory. And I agree with you that I think there's a lot of stuff that's not doing that now. So in the Kim Dracula conversation, for sure, I think that's one of the things that's been fascinating, because while at the same time, like, there's all these genres and they've done this really amazing job of blending them. You don't ever feel like the song never feels like it's falling apart. You never feel like you're completely in a different space. You're able to follow. This is this song. This is now the next song. Like, as I'm listening to the album, I'm not like, where am I? But yeah, a lot of the songs are 2.5 minutes long, and they never stick. Maybe not never, but for the most part, you're not in one genre for more than 30 seconds, 40 seconds. And I don't, off the top of my head, even though I've listened to these songs now a bazillion times in the last 5 days, like, there's definitely not a whole bunch of songs that are verse, maybe verse, second verse, chorus, verse, chorus. I don't think any of them are following a traditional song pattern. But what's interesting is that's not throwing you off. That's not making you go, this isn't a song. This is just a bunch of stuff, and there's probably a bunch of, again, that's where, like, maybe I'm not totally dialed in. There's probably a bunch of artists that are doing that where it's just not, it's not a traditional song structure, and that's fine, and it works.
Right. Well, one of the more interesting things to me too is, like, it's hard to kind of track what the kind of zeitgeist or the move is right now, because Taylor Swift has never been more popular. What in this insane year that woman has had.
Yeah.
And she's writing, like, the purest example of pop music that exists right now, I'd say. And yet that is popular and raking in crazy amounts of cash at the same time as, Kim Dracula is kind of out there, Billie Eilish is out there, Ghostman is out there, Blackpink has sort of started cooling off, BTS has started cooling off. I can't figure out the trajectories of music right now very well. And
maybe that's fine. And I guess maybe, like, that's just what it is right now.
Sure.
Like, maybe we grew up in a generation where you could follow that. Clearly when we were in college, we could clearly define what was popular music and then what we liked and why it was outside of that circle, and why it was outside that circle and what made, now I don't know what the circle is. So
right. I think that's the hardest bit. Right. Okay. That's a really good point. Is, like, the radio isn't dictating to us. MTV isn't dictating to us what mainstream music or popular music is. People are discovering things in other places in other ways. And so it allows for that fragmentation.
Yeah. Using Kim Dracula as an example, from what I can understand, it was a TikTok thing first, and now it's a thing. I was thinking of, like, so as a older person, so we like, so Tracy and I still will watch Saturday Night Live every week.
Okay, right.
And it's very much like one week I'm like, I 100% know who this person is. And then the next week I'm like, I 1000% do not know who this person is. And I also
like the musical guests or even the main
music.
guests?
No, the main people usually I know, but like,
okay.
the musical guests, sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what this is or why this person is what made this person popular. Why did they pick this person?
Right.
And, I mean, it kind of is what it is. And I don't know where, I'm not saying Saturday Night Live is super looped into the zeitgeist of popular music, but clearly there's some.
But, they pay somebody to book those acts, right?
Yeah.
So somebody's job is to make sure that whoever's going to be on there is going to bring eyeballs to the show no matter what, right? And
so, but I always find it interesting, even if I don't find it entertaining necessarily.
Sure. But. Yeah. Well, and that's another thing where I think like the fact that I can't even understand what, for example, Conan O'Brien's career trajectory is anymore, because he doesn't have a show the same way he had a show for so long, and yet that guy put so many bands on TV that never would have been on TV before his show. Well, so then you see where you've got, James Corden doesn't even do his show anymore, I don't think, but he did all that carpool karaoke stuff. So he had a pretty incredible range of people on his show for a while there. And then I think about the other Jimmy Fallon.
There's like, I was going to say there's like 5 of them. So
yeah. So Jimmy Fallon also will have some really interesting bands on, but he's also got the Roots as his house band.
Right.
And so, he can do this whole range of stuff. Plus he sings and he's into music on his own, and he does, interesting publicity stunts in, the New York City subways with famous singers and stuff like that. Right. Or he'll do like karaoke things with people.
All that like kids instrument stuff.
All the stuff where they play with toys. Yeah. But I've cut the cable as far as like my TV viewing. If it's not a streaming service via the internet on my Roku, I can't really watch it. I don't have terrestrial TV anymore, really. And so I'm getting exposure to some of these things, but sometimes it's months and years later on Facebook on the videos channel that, is kind of tuning in to what my interests are. So it's an interesting time. Like we did the episode about discovery when you talked about Sumo Cyco, but we talked about just how do you find your music. But I think the other piece of that is a lot of people who are young and doing music now, like Kim Dracula is like 28 or something.
Yeah.
26. Kim Dracula is 26. Ghostmane is 32. And so these are people who were born while we were in college or after.
Right.
And so their entire experience of music involves the internet one way or another.
No, for sure. Yeah.
These are people who like came into like, I'm going to listen to music right as like Napster was imploding upon itself or in the aftermath. And so their whole conception of music as a cultural thing is completely different than what we got from the radio or MTV.
Yeah. Although on the flip side, like we grew up hearing artists that were 10 years or 20 years or 30 years behind us. Like, so to think that someone who's 30 years old now, they could have had some level of equal exposure to.
A lot of their exposure came in video games, like Rock Band and Guitar Hero.
Or, maybe, but also like, I mean, I think the only one of the big differences is, they could have been as much influenced by the Deftones as they were by the Moody Blues or something, there's just a wider range of stuff.
Oh yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
like a longer, but I don't think someone who was born in the 90s or the early 2000s necessarily has, the drop off where I think for our generation, like there's a weird clearer definition between like 40s music, 50s music, 60s music. And then I think someone who's younger, I'm a little bit just leveraging, like, so my daughter, like I know I mentioned to you, like she's got a crap ton of playlists and all this stuff, and they're all over the place, but they're also all over the place time wise, not just genre wise. Like I was just listening to her playlist again today, and then there's something, there's something that came out last week, and then she's got like something from the early 80s, like some weird B level track off of a Waitress's album or something, like it's like, so I think it's different, but it's not locked into I guess all I'm saying is there's not we were heavily influenced by kind of this Zeppelin up to where we were modern times. Someone 20 years later still has some of that, it's not like it just moved up 20 years and they're kind of
no, absolutely.
Yeah. Which is an interesting thing, I think, more than
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, so to double down on like where I think the internet or the Napsterification of the music industry kind of actually influenced where people like your daughter's age and, these groups we're talking about, their ability to get an entire album on demand or any piece of it whenever they want to, rather than having to wait for someone to curate it on the radio, is so profoundly different. I mean, it used to drive me nuts going into a record store and looking at all the cool album art and being like, okay, I have $25. I want to walk out of here with 3 things if I can, maybe 4. I can't afford for 2 of them to suck. And there's no way for me to know if it sucks or not unless I trust the guy at the register or somebody already told me you should go get this, or I happen to recognize more than one of the songs on a record.
Yeah. Because
the number of times I bought a record because I liked one song I happened to have heard and then I thought the rest of it sucked is painful. Because $9 down the drain.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so someone who is 26 now has their
never had that experience.
Yeah, their experience is I have $0 and all of the music in the world is in front of me.
Yes,
let me just poke around. Yeah,
right. Yeah. My $25 could get me Spotify, Netflix. There's just so many things.
Or $0 and you just click around on YouTube for a while.
Right. Yeah, and that's we've shifted a lot of those costs into what we now think of as like utilities, almost like your internet. Your phone bill is different. There's you don't have cable the same way, so you got these other things instead. But it makes them invisible in some ways. The way your disposable income, goes different places in different ways. Like, and $25 in 1989, shit. How much is that? Like, that's like $150. Yeah. That's a lot of dough. When you
for 4 CDs that might.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, when I think about, like, I look at all these vinyl releases and I'm like, why the hell is this $45? It's like, because it would have been $14 in 1987, and inflation is real. Yeah. But yeah, that's just one of those differences that I think that, like, the exposure that all these people have to almost anything they want at any amount of, at any time for any amount of time. And then the fact that mashups and mixes and DJ culture made music listening a different thing and made it palatable to put incongruous things together. Yeah. Just like weird things that would end up on YouTube where it's like, why is this Devo song layered on top of, something by Cab Calloway or, whatever it is, right? Somebody did that and then made it public, and then it became a meme, or it just became something that entered internet culture. And we weren't really getting that when we were younger. So
no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, that just made me think of like a weird phenomenon that's been around my house the last maybe month or two. Like, so Grace is 17 and is on TikTok all the time and has randomly been humming or singing, like she's just like singing some song from the 80s that's like, it wasn't like a super popular song, but it's just out of nowhere. And then you're like, oh, that's 100% just some TikTok stuck that song on something. And her exposure to music is solely based on social media,
right?
Memes and things and whatever's on the For You page. It's just like, it's not based in anything how we got music.
Yeah,
on a regular basis. Like it's so completely different.
Right.
But there is a weird, and I don't know enough to dive into it, but there's an interesting phenomenon of music from our generation popping into these weird spaces that are coming across to people who are, teenagers right now and stuff like.
Right.
Because it's just the background music for some other thing.
Right.
That it just got somehow randomly applied or whatever, it's like.
Well, it's like that. There's also that element of that meme that went around, I don't know, a year or 3 ago, where it's like, the moment where some young person says to you, wow, did you know that film composer Trent Reznor used to have a band? And like, yeah, that's one of those moments where, but that's that's likely to become real. And you invited me to come see that Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction show with Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and Knights of Webb, and that seemed to like kick off this combination of bands we liked from the late 80s and early 90s doing sort of a, anniversary tour, last gasp, whatever it is, kind of get back out on the road again. Like the 40th anniversary tour for KMFDM is in like March or April or something.
Yeah.
And Ministry is like,
like Thrill Kill Cult's been out on the road.
Yeah. Right.
Like a bunch of,
Right. And meanwhile, the 15 years after that sort of emo scene is likewise doing sort of a resurgence tour. And so like this band called The Maine, like spelled like the state, just came through Chicago, and I didn't really know who they were, but then I listened to a couple of their songs. I'm like, oh, these are people who are in that My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy sort of, range of things. And I almost went to see their show, even though I didn't know any of their music, because Daisy Grenade was opening for them.
Yeah.
But Daisy Grenade wouldn't have made their break if it weren't for Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy, who discovered them and signed them and wrote one of their big breakthrough songs and things like that. So there's all these weird resurgences of these bands that are from all these different sort of time frames, kind of like, it's time to dust off the amps and get back out on the road. And maybe for some of them, it's because we're never doing it again after this or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too. And I think it's exposing people to stuff like this. But it's weird, like seeing videos occasionally of Mudvayne playing live shows, still in the makeup. And it's weird, thinking that Korn, all the members of Korn are finally back together again to put something out. And like Limp Bizkit doing live music again. It's like,
well, they're they're like still recording now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But also, like, is that kind of fine and cool? Like,
oh yeah, I think
know,
it's
like,
fine.
I mean, like, it's like, it's like,
it's a weird moment.
It's weird, but it's No, I was like, this whole last week. So in Columbus, there's this 4-day metal festival. I think it's called like Sonic Temple or something.
Okay,
like
yeah, I think.
And I was like, I'm looking at the lineup and I'm going like, I wish I was 22. Like, I want to go to this really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like $900 and 4 days of like outdoor music metal festival at my age. I'm kind of like, I probably would die. But also, like, so Kim Dracula is playing one of the days. Anthrax, Mr. Bungle, Calva Louise is a band I like a lot.
Yeah.
Fukavi is another one. Like, there's a good 35 to 40% of the bands, and there's those type of festivals now. I mean, it's like 120 bands. There's like four stages for 4 days, so it's like a ton of bands. But I was like, oh, I know like 25% of these bands, which I feel good about, at least the fact that, okay, I'm still enough in touch that I know 25% of a festival's bands.
Right. Yeah.
But then I was like, also, I mean, it's not a financial thing. I could probably financially do it. Could I physically do it? I don't know.
Well, that's one of those things like,
I would because I would love to see Mr. Bungle again. I saw them in 1992 or something, and I would love to see that. Anthrax is playing. I haven't seen them. I don't know if I ever saw them. There's Judas Priest is playing. Right. There's a bunch of like classic stuff in there, but then there's like a bunch of these new metal things that I actually like that I'm like, I would like to see that too. But
Tech
who's going with
In
me?
Flames,
and B,
L7.
Yeah, In Flames. Yeah, L7's playing. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of good stuff in there.
Living Color.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I would honestly, and I'm like, it's a 2-hour drive, so it's not,
right.
The distance isn't the issue. Financially is not really the issue if I wanted to, but physically, could I stand and watch bands for 4 days in a row? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Like that's one of those things where you'd have to figure out some way to to make it work. A helmet.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that
Red
honestly
Fang.
really, really wants to go to that.
Soulfly. Wow.
I mean, there's bands that I'm not super into,
Laguna
but I would kind of wouldn't mind seeing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we're getting into bands I've never heard of. Okay. Like as I go down, it does get a little bit like, huh?
Oh, sure.
I might have heard of that band.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm like,
the whole
25% of those bands you've heard of.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something that, if I want to dust off my crusty old man kind of attitude for a little bit again, these huge festivals are almost impossible to attend because of what you're saying. Like the first Lollapalooza had 7 bands.
Right.
And then it traveled around the country. Now Lollapalooza is one of these things, and you're supposed to come to Chicago because that's the only place it happens. And I get why that makes more sense, but the tickets are also like multiple hundreds of dollars a day to attend this 3-day thing or whatever. And
well, then and I was looking at that, so that Sonic whatever in Columbus.
Yeah.
I clearly would have controversy like multiple times because there's bands that I would want to see
Right.
that are playing at the same time. So
yeah, and I don't see on this website a breakdown of who's playing when, but
no, but
I
like
just
it's broken into the 4 sections per day. So I'm guessing it kind of those are like 4 stages,
right.
and then you're kind of like working your way up the time frame. So
Right. Well, and hotel.
because I think it was like Lacuna Coil is a band I really like. They're playing at the same time as Anthrax. So, or like,
suddenly the value proposition goes down.
Right.
Right.
Especially if you only know 25% of the bands, but then
if
50% of them are playing at the same time. So you're going to miss those. So then you're like,
absolutely. Right. Well, and so this is mid-May of 2024. And then there's like stuff for camping.
Yeah, I think I saw
the pre-sale starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
The exclusive pre-sale starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then regular sale of passes starts Friday. And then you can put your passes on layaway for as low as $10 down. Holy shit.
No, I saw something that was like a hotel and VIP pass and all this stuff, and it's like $800. And I'm like, okay, if I was like super crazy into it, $800 is not the end of the world. I could figure that out.
Weekend VIP level 2 is $670.
Yeah.
Level 4 is $710. Weekend stadium 4-pack is $919. A stadium wristband for all 4 days. And then there's 3 different price levels. Yeah, level 3 is $999.96.
Yeah, that's insane.
$1,000? What? Like we're starting to get to.
But then you're like, oh well, it's
Super Bowl
$250 a day. But it's
right. Well, and if I start saving up for it now, and it's only $10 down payment,
no, it's it's ridiculous.
Saturday sweet.
Yeah, I mean, we went to the first Lollapalooza. What was that first Lollapalooza? $25.
Oh yeah, 25, and we were like,
which was probably hellish to pull up the money, but yeah,
100 and it's probably $100 now. Well, I just remember the first time I saw Skinny Puppy. I saw Skinny Puppy on the Too Dark Park tour, and it was $19 or $21, and I was like, well, who do they think they are? What is this? Oh my God. Because the first time, 2 or 3 months earlier, I saw 9 Inch Nails for $16. I'm like, that's more reasonable. Come on. And I saw the Violent Femmes 2 or 3 months before that for $12, and Fugazi at the VFW was $5. you know?
Well, they threw a wrench in the whole thing with their.
Yes, absolutely. But still, it's like I just remember being indignant, spending more than $20 on tickets to a show, and then
which is actually realistic.
Yeah.
It got out of control.
But we're talking
and it
30
never
years
stopped
ago.
getting out of. Yeah, but it got out of control, and then it just continued to get out of control. There's no reason that you should pay $290 for a nosebleed seat at any concert. It's just not even
right. Right. And the industry would have you believe that it's because of things like streaming and that touring is the only way these people are going to make any money. But that's when they're touring in these places that are labeled with corporate names, whatever beer company arena or whatever cell phone company or media corporation Coliseum or whatever, so there's definitely just a different approach to how these things function now. And there's definitely some value, I think, in all of the sort of warnings we get all the time that like local music is going to be the next big thing somewhere. So you should support local bands because that's how you get to hear somebody for $10 instead of 100. But it's hard. It's just, it's a very different mindset. Yeah, the Sonic Temple thing looks neat, but I have no idea
it looks awesome.
I would make it work.
I'm like, Also, I really want to see Sumo Cyco, and I'm like, also like, I'm not driving to Chicago. And
yeah, are they playing soon?
I think it's the 10th.
The 10th of December.
Yeah.
Which is what, like Saturday?
Next week. Yeah.
Today?
Yeah, no. I was tempted, but I'm like, I mean, you're in Chicago, relatively. So if I would recommend going to see them, but I'm also far too lazy, and
it looks like the closest they're going to get to you is like
Chicago. They already played Harrisburg,
Louisville, Kentucky. How far is Louisville, Kentucky?
5 hours.
Or Flint, Michigan. Where the hell is Angola, Indiana?
Chicago is roughly probably as close as most of those. So.
Well, yeah, and you got other reasons to come as well, but
no, it crossed my mind, but then I'll have to catch him next time.
Oh, okay, because it's Non-Point and Head PE.
Yeah, they're like opening they're the opener for the opener for the opener. But.
Yeah, well, there's one band that's local. It looks like they're called Varsity with no vowels.
Yeah.
They're the special guest. And so, then Sumo Cyco, then Head PE, and then Non-Point. I saw both Head PE and Non-Point 20 years ago, and they put on okay shows. I couldn't tell you a damn thing they've done since then, but it's $25 for this show, and it's at the Bottom Lounge on Lake Street. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I might go check this show out. Because it's Sunday, though. Not Saturday. I thought it was Saturday. Crap.
No, that was the other.
Yeah, it's Sunday night. Yeah, that's a rough one.
I was like, all right, I gotta.
Yeah, Friday or Saturday, okay, but Sunday night? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're old, man.
I know.
We're crusty old dudes. Though, when I think about it, Sunday has to be just about the worst day to go see a show. Daytime, if you were going to go during the daytime, I suppose that's okay, but what a weird thing to do. But I'd rather go on a Tuesday.
Seeing a show Sunday when it's local is also different than I'm going to go travel to another city and go see a show on a Sunday.
Yeah, because you're taking the next day off work, no matter what, if that's what you did, because you got a 6-hour drive. If Sumo Cyco was headlining this show, I'd almost be more inclined to go see it. But because these other bands I have very little interest in, it's
I'm sure they'll probably only play. Like when I saw them,
they'll play like 40 minutes or something. Yeah.
The show I saw in Cleveland, they were headlining.
Yeah, that would be a much.
So it was. I mean, it still wasn't
better experience.
They only played like an hour 20 or something. It wasn't like crazy, but
there is that total difference. Like,
because they may only play like 5 songs.
That's one of those things about those giant festival things too. Like, I saw Ozfest in like 2002 or something, and all these bands that I was really getting into were on like side stages. Yeah. And so like, there's this band, I literally watched them play 4.5 songs, and then they had to leave the stage because the next band was coming on. It's like 4.5 songs. And then like the band was pissed off, and, people were just like, what the hell's going on? It's nuts when they end up on that kind of stage where you're just cranking people through, and somebody's set got screwed up and there were technical problems, so somebody has to get hosed, and
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that third Lollapalooza we saw in Detroit where there's a tornado in the middle of the concert and Dinosaur Jr. got to play like 6 songs. That was it. They were gone. Well, so Kim Dracula, what's your what's your recommendation to anybody who wants to check Kim Dracula out and like, you know,
like in terms
what are you
of
going to say to Kim?
What songs or what?
Yeah, or
I don't know. So
do you start at YouTube or do you go straight to the music?
I think it depends on who you are. So, okay, sure. And I only say that because I think there's only 3. I think only 3 of the songs off the album have actual music videos.
Okay.
They are very much music videos. Like they're also, which this is a whole separate subtopic. Like I find it fascinating that a band made up of probably 26 to 30-year-olds tops is doing music videos in the vein of like what music videos were when we were, right. There's a story, there's a thing, because there's actually, I think there's 4 videos, but 2 of them, there's a character in them that's in both and stuff, so there's like, and there's a story in all of them and stuff, so they're not music videos for music video's sake. They're not just the band jumping around on a unique set. There's
right.
a story there. So that's a cool aspect. But I would say I think you have to at least like metal.
Okay.
At its core, the Kim Dracula stuff has a metal bass line. But if you have any kind of even just awareness of music in general, like, and I don't even know where to pin it down. Like there's just so many genres that flow in and out. They're all, the cohesive element of their music is kind of, I would say, metal.
Okay.
And I wouldn't define it more than just that word. Like it's not death metal. It's not hair metal. It's not like it's a metal based cohesion that is tied together with almost everything you can think of. I mean, there's Tibetan monk chant kind of sounds. There's like jazz. There's there's all kinds of everything sort of sprinkled on top. Okay. But it's all wrapped in a little fun little metal basket, I guess. And it's fun. I don't know. I mean, I know the lyric content and the videos are pretty aggressive and pretty harsh and politically topical and whatever, but
right.
But I just find the album fun. Like it's not fun like happy go lucky on dancing on the beach, but
I get that sense of fun that it's like it's a nice surprise. It's something that you weren't expecting, that you enjoy more than you kind of were looking to enjoy something at that moment, and then it's there and it keeps giving as you go.
No, again, it's giving in the context of the topics are it's based on the lyrics, and again, I'm not super Johnny lyrics, but I actually have been kind of listening to the lyrics. It's
look at you.
I know I got crazy. No, but it's a there's some catharsis, there's some working through some stuff kind of things going on in there. It's not pleasant subject matter.
Right.
But as a whole, it's fun. I get fun maybe isn't the right word. I enjoy listening to it all the way through.
Okay.
It doesn't
like you mean the album start to finish.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
So I will say I always turn it off at the last song. So the second to last, so the last song is just a little, it's not even a song. It's just like one of those little like outro snippet things.
Yeah. Okay.
But the last song on the album is a cover of Goo Goo Dolls' Iris.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it doesn't do it for me. And so I always kind of stop and go back.
That's interesting to me because I am a Goo Goo Dolls fan. Irish, I don't know, is like, in the top of like the songs I like by that band, but I do like.
So,
but now I'm more interested because they, Kim Dracula did that.
So
and Paparazzi. So now I'm
So I think I would say what they did with Paparazzi is way more interesting than what they did with Iris. Iris, it's not a straight cover by any means, but it's not, I guess, as the end of an album that has now sprinkled 9,000 genres in your face and gone all over the place, has some relatively there's aggressive stuff and hyper and crazy. Iris is a very slow paced, it's a weird choice for the end of the album, and it's not like it's a fast version of the song or there's anything crazy in it. It's not an exact cover, but they're not doing anything super crazy with it. So I think that's why I'm kind of like,
okay. Yeah, that is.
But I think there's 20 songs on the album, so I would say 18 of the songs are pretty freaking amazing. And the cover's not bad. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't carry the weight of, or the, I don't know. It just doesn't fit in with the rest of what they're doing on the album, I guess. Like I if they had taken it and kind of gone all wonky with it, maybe I would have been like, oh, that's cool. It's not exactly a straightforward cover, but it's not super far from the song. So,
okay.
I feel like the album kind of peters out because the song before it is that Make Me Famous song, which is probably the most like crazy in your face thing. And then they do Iris by Google Dolls, and it's kind of,
Yeah, it's interesting, like the play counts on all these things. It's fascinating. Like,
well, I think a few of those songs were singles before the album came out too. So there's a little bit of beefed up numbers in there, but
yeah, like right in the middle of the album, there's that Jonathan Davis cameo,
and that is a song that has a video. So Superhero has a video, that song.
I was looking it up, and there are a lot of videos as far as official videos. So like there's a thing of Paparazzi that looks like it's the TikTok kind of just ported over to YouTube, but then there's Make Me Famous, Drown, Death Before Designer, Land of the, oh wait, no, that's not. The rest of these they're like just the album music. They're just the songs. Yeah. So Make Me Famous, Drown, Superhero, and 70 Thorns are the ones that have like, and they seem to be like at least partially an interconnected narrative.
A little bit. Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember. I think it's at the end of Drown. One of the videos ends with, there's this old guy driving a cop car that is in multiple videos.
Oh, okay.
So it's not exactly all tied together, but there's a little bit of that, which again to me feels very 80s music videos. Like Rat or Motley Crue or some of those like bands like that. You would have like certain things pop up from a video before, and it would be
right.
It's not exactly a story, but
gotcha. Okay,
there's some loose tie to it. Yeah.
Okay, so you've talked about in the past that one of the things that was I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed like it was a little heartbreaking to you that as you were finishing your degree, number one, the school was stopping the degree that you had to go in another direction, and two, that like the music video as art form started to go into decline in a way not long after we got out of college. It seems like within 10 years after we got out of college, music videos just weren't what they had been. And, by 2005, it's a very different marketplace. And I had read, like in Rolling Stone or somewhere, that part of that was because the marketing arms of all of these record labels were just like, there's no money in it anymore because MTV doesn't show music videos, and what else are we going to do with this stuff?
Right.
And I think part of it was also that YouTube wasn't quite there yet. YouTube just hadn't been purchased by Google for sure. Streaming video just wasn't, really ready for prime time in a lot of ways. Quality was low. There wasn't a lot of ways to monetize things then. But it seems
I think it's, as an art form, it's, and I may be I wouldn't be surprised if it's as back as it was or more, and I'm just not as dialed in. I mean, clearly, so, this conversation where we're talking about Kim Dracula, or like the way I kind of fell into Sumo Psycho and a couple of the other bands, the music video component is a huge piece. So it's clearly a thing. Like, it's definitely not a thing in the context of where I had such an interest back then. Maybe I never was into it where I was like that was what I wanted to get into, but not as a, like, this is how I'm going to make millions. It wasn't like a money thing. It was definitely more of an art thing. Right. But to be honest, I still get to do video stuff at my day job and stuff. And it's, for whatever it is, it's still like, I have to put background music on it. Well, I'm going to edit around the background music. Like the music is still a piece. I'm not making a music video, but
right.
The sound component of video to me is, is huge. It drives me nuts to watch a social media ad where the music isn't, it's just dumped on there and clearly there's no.
I follow what you mean. Totally. Yeah.
I'm not doing anything crazy and super creative, and it's not, my lifelong dream to the little bits of video stuff I get to do. But no, in a perfect world, I win the lottery tomorrow and I'm mucking around. I still would love to just play around with that kind of stuff. It would be largely audio based video editing type of things. That would be my, I'm just sitting around playing and doing stuff like that.
It seems like, that's turned a corner is where I was going with it. Kim Dracula, part of what makes Kim Dracula work, I think, is the visual, is the presence. Kim Dracula would be on Beavis and Butthead if Beavis and Butthead still had the panache that it had before, much like White Zombie, much like Marilyn Manson, much like Tool, these are all bands that I like as bands, but the visual component of what they were doing was as much or more sometimes why I even gave a shit about what they were doing. And that's something that even that J-pop stuff I was talking about, I mean, this is going to be a weird one. Like in my mind, the thumbnail for this, if we make one, is Kim Dracula as a member of Blackpink or something, because that's where I'm going with a lot of this discussion, is that there's this, like, I wouldn't have paid that much attention to Blackpink without their music videos, but I couldn't even find a CD to buy or a way to really download their music for sale. But YouTube just pummeled the hell out of that band's popularity. Like, they have billions of views on YouTube. YouTube is how they've launched most of their music. The visual is part of it. And their music videos are these produced sort of event things. They're not telling stories necessarily, but there are narrative elements. There are all of these interesting sort of artistic flourishes and that kind of thing. And to see Kim Dracula with this handful of videos that obviously have production quality, and somebody invested some time and energy and dough into making that happen. And then, like you talked about with Sumo Psycho doing their own videos and building this whole actual integrated narratives sometimes with what they're doing with that. It's nice to see that, but a lot of it has to do with just the accessibility of production. You know, the quality you can get with like good phones and a laptop.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny with the Kim Dracula stuff. So earlier today, I actually looked, like their website is sparse at best. Like the shop is a hoodie, a t-shirt, and I think the CD of this album, but it's sold out.
Oh, wow.
Whereas like, so Sumo Psycho, again, like in that regard, not only are they make videos for almost everything, and they do all that production, and then they have a crap ton of merch like that they make, like they, you know, like this Kim Dracula, there's nothing you could buy. Like I browsed around. I mean, there might be some stuff on eBay and some older whatever, but they're not really, they don't seem to be too interested in like, here's 9 different kinds of t-shirts and here's, you know, like
right. Yeah. I see that there's the CD is sold out, and then there's a hoodie.
There's like a hoodie shirt.
A hoodie and a t-shirt. Yeah, this is almost like one of those like single page website kind of things, because you're supposed to have a website. So there's like a listen that takes you to one of those narrow phone centric, you know, like go to Spotify, Tidal, or Apple. And then there's a link to the YouTube channel. There's a link to the tour stuff, which mentions a show in Vegas in April and a show in Daytona Beach in May. And then there's the store, which has the 3 merch items you mentioned. And then everything else is icons that take you to socials.
Yeah. But meanwhile, from what I understand, like, I mean, like this is all, a lot of this started on TikTok, and there's, you know, so there's areas on social where it's huge, and there's like 9 million reaction videos to Kim Dracula. So the video component is really driving a lot of,
for real.
They're on this Sonic whatever thing. Like, I mean, even though there are 100 bands on there, that's, you know, 100 metal bands out of thousands and thousands of metal bands, you know, so they're clearly making some kind of inroads somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Huh. So interesting. Yeah, looking at, I'm just trying to, who even signed to this? Man, that's interesting that there's not.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what. Yeah, because you look at those videos and you're like, I mean,
who paid for this? How did they get it made?
I have a huge appreciation for all those Sumo Psycho videos, but in the end, those guys. They're
not those Kim Dracula videos
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
somebody is footing some pretty heavy cash for those.
Yeah, and like,
and I did see. So the only other thing while I've been listening to the shit out of that album, like I haven't like super duper deep dived into like every detail of this band. I do know that the guitarist is the lead singer's brother.
Okay.
For what that's worth, I don't know, you know, but.
Well, and that's one of those things where if you look at Wikipedia, Kim Dracula is the person, and it's also known as for Samuel Wellings.
Yeah.
But then, as you know, we said earlier, Kim Dracula also appears to be the group or the presence. Right. Like it's not just kind of like Marilyn Manson was the band before it was, you know, the person or whatever. Yeah, there is no mention of who signed Kim Dracula or what the publishing company or what label it's on. Order of the Snake is the copyright. Order of the Snake Records. It's a label.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I'm interested in learning more about Order of the Snake Records. And then, okay, so Kim Dracula on Facebook is Order of the Snake is a post that Kim Dracula made recently. That's it. Huh. So my guess is that's a publishing company, the way that bands self-publish all the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'll give this another. Like, I haven't listened to any of this stuff since last summer. So, and when I think when I was checking it out, there was only like a handful of things because the album was about to drop in July or something like that.
Yeah. See, I feel like I heard the Paparazzi song, and that one, I mean, it's cool as a cover because it's pretty unique, but to me, it doesn't represent what that album is.
Okay.
Like I would say, so
well,
if you get a chance and just listen to the album all the way through once.
Okay.
Because also all those songs connect, like the ends of one goes into the next. So it's literally like it is kind of an experience just listening to it, So if you can set aside 40 minutes, if you drop out during Iris, it's not. You're fine.
It's not the end of the world. Huh?
No, but it's such a roller coaster. Like, I don't know, like that's the only way. And again, I don't, there's a couple parts on this album too, where I'm like, they have to have listened to Mike Patton or Mr. Bungle. There's a couple of those little bits, but it's definitely not that. They're not ripping that or living in that exact same world. But if you just kind of put the album on, you're going to listen to the album all the way through, you will ride that ride of 30, 40 different genres. Like, it's
neat. Okay.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, I'm looking at the album on Spotify, a gradual decline in morale by Kim Dracula. And the only track on the album, including the little interstitial vignettes or whatever they are, the only track that is not explicit is Iris. Every single other track on the album has the little E. That's great. And it looks like, Paparazzi's not part of this album. That's a whole separate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
it's where I'm curious to kind of hear your take.
Of
just listening to it from.
I'll give it a listen. Do you know if Kim Dracula has ever toured the U.S.?
I don't. Well, there's a few clips of live performances that look. I believe they're in the U.S. I was clicking around. I didn't watch all of them, so I think yes, but probably pretty recently. I think they may actually be currently like kind of kicking around.
The website just has those two for later in 24.
On YouTube, you'll start to see some clips where there's shows, and I feel like they were in the U.S. But
okay. Well, and I wonder too.
Oh, you know what? So they opened for Falling in Reverse and somebody else.
Okay.
Which I looked at. So when I was Googling some stuff and everybody was like referencing Falling in Reverse, I didn't know anything about that band. And the couple songs I listened to, I'm like, to me, that's not the same. I don't know. It was to me, the Falling in Reverse stuff that I heard was very heavy in the hip hop vein with little bits and pieces of stuff, but it wasn't, I don't know. To me, it wasn't the same vibe. Like
well, that's one of those interesting things that it seems like that sort of weird hip hop connection and the trap kind of connection maybe got some of the attention, but then Kim Dracula decided to do their own thing.
Yeah, because
more power to them. Right on.
Well, because if you go like all the Kim Dracula stuff on YouTube, there's for sure a few where it's like somebody else featuring Kim Dracula, and those are 100% like trap hip hop things where he's just doing some kind of background thing for 5 seconds, and
right.
Those are not super compelling to me, but
okay. Well, I think, we've spent probably about an hour and 20 minutes. That's how long our episodes usually last lately.
Yeah.
So, we got a little extra stuff in there or whatever. But, this is the comfort level of just having this conversation and not being constantly worrying about, can you hear my audio? Can you hear my YouTube? It's just so nice to be able to go off on that. And I'm glad that, we're doing another one, with a little, like, now, that we're kind of back into the swing of things, and hopefully we can do this again in a week and it won't feel crazy or like a shock or anything.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we'll call it a show, and we'll wrap up for here. And I want to let everybody know that you can check us out on Facebook. Exit 181 is a group that you can join and follow and comment on any of our posts there on Facebook. We also are on YouTube. We have a website at exit181.chaosspirals.com. There you can see links to all of our previous episodes, and that includes the stuff we've done on Spotify in the past, as well as the YouTube episodes. Please check that out. Please like and follow on whatever platform you find us, and interact with us on any of those platforms as well. And we look forward to interacting with you more and more as we get back into the swing of things. So I'm Matt Duncan.
I'm Dean Bianchi.
And thanks for listening to Exit 181. All right.